Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Camino Cafe. I'm so excited to have you with us, whether you're watching us on YouTube or you're listening to our podcast. And today I have a super exciting guest with us. I have Susi from Casa Susi with us. And Susi, thank you so much for being willing to interview with us today.
You're so welcome, Lee. Thank you for having me. Hi, Camino Cafe.
Oh, well, thank you. I have followed your Instagram for quite a while, and I always feel this really great energy from you every time I see one of your posts. And I always think like, I really want to meet her someday. And I'm so excited that Tanya helped introduce us. And I can't wait to talk to you about all the things. So let's just start with, I have a little bit of an advantage of knowing a little bit more about you than maybe some of our listeners and viewers. So I just wonder if you could just kind of tell us where you are, what city, what town you're in, and kind of describe to us what it's like.
Okay, so I've got an albergue called Casa Susi. It's in Trabadello, which is in the province of Castilla. Our closest big town would be Ponferrada, which is 32 kilometers. Okay. Then the closest smaller town is Villafranca del Bierzo, which I think a lot of people know because it's a really pretty town on the Camino. That's 8 days. And then on from us is Galicia. So we're 15 kilometers more or less walking to Galicia. Oh. And that's on the climb up to El Sobrero, which anybody that's done the Camino will remember. So yeah, we're on the flat plateau in the middle of the valley. Okay. A little microclimate of 7 villages, and we're the 3rd village in.
Okay. So about how far are you from Santiago?
172 kilometers, about a week more or less, depending. I mean, by now we're thinking people are doing 25 Ks a day. So yeah, we think about a week, 6 days for the quicker ones and 10 for the slower.
Perfect. Okay, so I think where I want to start with things is one of my favorite quotes about the Camino is that the Camino doesn't give you necessarily what you think you want. It ends up giving you what you need. So I'd kind of like to start there because I know you've done several Caminos, and obviously something big happened because not only did you walk several times, but you ended up moving to Spain and opening your own albergue. So I just wonder if you could kind of think back and that first walk. And at that time, what did you think you wanted? You know, what was your reason on going on Camino, and what did you think was going to happen as a result versus what actually did happen?
I was just pleased if I actually got to the end, to be perfectly honest with you. I wasn't entirely sure I could do it. I hadn't backpacked before ever, and I was 5, and I wasn't a walker or a hiker. So yes, I walked to the beach, or I walked along my local beaches in Sydney, Australia, because that's what I did. I owned a flower shop, so I walked around that a lot, but I wasn't a gym junkie or anything like that. And I liked nice things. I liked sitting by swimming pools and having cocktails on my holidays. Yes. So to do, was very much out of my comfort zone. But I'd read a book in 2007 about the Camino, and I had thought, why would anybody walk across a country? Though Spain was a country that I loved. It was my first overseas trip when I was 4. So for me, yeah, Spain held very dear to me. I've spent many holidays here with my family, and I brought my daughter here over the years as well. So I'd loved coming here, but I still thought, why would anybody walk across a country?
You can just go to the beach, right?
Miserable. I mean, they had such a terrible time. It's just like, that's not a good day. Yeah, it's just, that's not good. But I had an incident with an ex-boyfriend, and he pretty much broke my heart, and he walked the Camino. And after he'd walked it, he eventually contacted me and said, let's get back together and we can start a new life. And all I could think about was what happened on the Camino. So that the seed was planted, I think then. Yes. We did get back together very, very briefly. Big mistake. But also the best mistake, because that mistake led me to come and do the Camino, because once we broke up, I thought, I need to do the Camino. So it took me pretty much 10 months to myself organize, because I thought, I don't know if I can do this, and I don't know what to expect. So I need to prepare to leave my business, make sure it's being run, and give myself an open-ended amount of time. And I know not everybody has that luxury, but if you do, it is amazing to do. And I thought, if it doesn't work for me, I've got nothing to lose. I'll just go traveling somewhere else. But I will start, the attempt. And so what was I expecting of that journey? Yeah, just put in front of the other, getting to the other end.
So just diving, that was it, right?
Yes,
so maybe.
And I didn't
prove that you could do the Camino. Was that kind of your?
Yeah, I think originally it was proof to myself. Could I do this? But before I'd even started, I'd got to Pamplona. I flew into Pamplona, and I had to get to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port in France. So I had a couple of days. I thought I'll stay in a hostel, acclimatize myself gently alone before I get to the beginning. And I sat on the step in after having spent a night in a hostel, sat on the step just crying in Pamplona, going, what am I doing? And it was really vivid. And I called my daughter crying, and it's okay, you'll be fine. And she gave me lots of encouragement. She said, what's the worst that can happen, Mum? When can you leave if you begin? And I said, well, probably 3 days. I've got to walk back to Pamplona to be able to go to the airport. And she goes, so the worst is 3 days. You can do 3 days. And I thought, yeah, she's probably right. And then she just made a little comment right at the end and said, and everyone's betting how long you'll leave, when you'll leave. I'm betting you might even start. And I'm like, really? Oh, I will do this.
Sounds like your daughter knew exactly what to say to motivate you.
Yeah, she pressed all the right buttons. It's like, I'll do this. And I did begin, and it was punishable. In a strange way, it was a pleasurable punishment. It was like, hitting myself with a stick, but it was the thing that was spurring me along. I had really bad feet, really bad blisters, and every day I wanted to leave, and every day I continued. And literally I got to, just after Travadello, when I got to Galicia, and I almost could feel Santiago calling me, dragging me there. And I'd done it in a regular time as well. I mean, I pretty much had kept to all the stages more or less. So, I was going in on day 32, as most of the guides say.
Wow.
And I didn't want it to end. When I got there, how do you stop when you got there? So the pain disappeared. A bit like having a baby. All of those days of struggle and tears and all of those things that came with it, when I got there, had disappeared. And then I'm like, right, now I'm off to Finisterre, and I'm going to walk the world maybe now. Yeah, so, went from a struggle to not being a struggle. And I realised I was feeling a change within myself. I couldn't really pinpoint what it was at the time. I just knew, I knew I was the better version of myself. I liked the woman that was walking with me.
I love that.
There was all the good things within me came out.
So tell me, if I had met you at your shop in Australia before your Camino, how was that version of Susi different than the Susi after Camino?
She was quite nice. I might say she was very smiling. She was very happy. And she was, I was giving, I had a lot of customers that weren't necessarily my customers in terms of buying flowers, but I was in a small community, and lots of the older community would sort of just leave their shopping bags, and I'd drop them after work, or they'd just pop up to say hello, or I'd check up on them. So, it wasn't that I wasn't a caring person before. I was a caring person. But it was an openness that came on the Camino. It was like my heart had opened.
Your heart had opened.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that. I didn't realize it was closed or blocked, but it was open. I was open, and it didn't matter. I suppose when I was in Australia and I was busy, you know, I tried to take time with people, but there's only so much time you can give. And when you're busy, you've got to keep going, and then you have to move on to the next thing. Whereas the Camino allowed me to stop and slow down and breathe and listen, but not just listen to other people, listen to myself, listen to how I felt, and then walking beside somebody with no communication, hours on end, but feeling like I had a conversation. And that, I mean, there's something that I could never do. I would never have been able to do in Australia, just to listen to nothing, but feel everything. And I won't say I judged people. I don't want to say that I judge people, but I maybe would be wary of somebody coming towards me that didn't quite fit in.
Yeah.
And as you know, on the Camino, nobody looks the same, but we all fit in. There is none, you know, we don't judge. There is no judgment on the Camino. And I think that was my biggest thing. And it was only when I got back to London afterwards and I was with my daughter and we came out of the train station, there was a man, and I just walked up to him and just like, and it was just a man. He was just standing there with a map and he opened. And I said, hi, how are you? And my daughter's like, oh, what happened? And he said, oh, I'm sort of lost. I don't know where. And I said, well, this is where you are. Where do you want to go? And he showed me. And I said, well, you know, turn the map and it's just, you know, it's 5 minutes away. And I said, actually, my map I've got is much better than yours. So here's my map. And I gave him my map and I walked away and my daughter went, what happened? And I said, well, he needed, and I thought nothing of it. I mean, just, I suppose people don't do that in London. They don't just go up to complete strangers. But I liked it. And then my daughter liked it a lot too. Yeah.
So it sounds like that opening of the heart, this compassion, this.
What I've got, do you need what I've got? Is there something I've got that I can give you? Because if there is, I want to share that with you. You know, we walked with one of my Caminos. I walked with a girl and she was on €5 a day. That was what her budget was. She was 17 and she had walked from Saint Jean Pied de Port to Roncesvalles. And when she had come out of the albergue in the morning, the albergue owner said, is there somebody willing to walk with this guy over the mountains because he's blind and he'd come alone? Okay. And he was Irish and she just said, yeah, I will, no problems. And I met them walking that day. The guy with the stick and this young girl, and, you know, we had a brief talk. And then when we got to Roncesvalles, she had decided she only had €5. She couldn't stay in the albergue. She would sleep outside. And the guy, to thank her, said, no, like, you'll sleep where I'm sleeping and I'll pay for you. Wow. And we met in the bar and this story started to unfold. And I said, well, tonight you eat with us and I'll pay. Wow. It's just what you did. And you didn't think twice about it. And it's funny because COVID is doing a lot of that now. Yeah. You know, that we're giving a little bit more to people. And it's the smallest thing, even a compliment.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw a guy in London the last time I was there, and he was in a purple suit. He was an older man. He had this long moustache, and it was curled up like this, and he had this purple suit and this beautiful, bright purple tie. And I walked past it because I was thinking, he looks incredible. And I walked past him, I thought, why can't I tell him he looks incredible? So I walked back. I said, you look incredible. You look absolutely amazing. And then I said, can I take a photo? Which he was over the moon. And I had the photo to say to my daughter, hey, look at this guy. He's really cute. Yeah, I mean, he was an older man, but look how amazing does he look. So, yeah. Oh, it's okay to pay a compliment, but I think those things have come from the Camino for me.
I totally agree with you. I think you have mentioned so many things just in the last couple of seconds that I want to bring out. Is the first thing is, you know, the Camino provides, right? And I think the illustration of how you're talking about this fellow pilgrim who was on €5 a day, and now she's helping a guy that needs help with scene, and then he returns the favor to her for the room and board that night, and then you end up buying her dinner. And I think that's a beautiful illustration of the Camino providing, and how good it feels when the Camino provides something to you, but also how good it feels to be able to provide to someone else, right? Like, it feels so good. And then I think the other thing I want to bring out in your answer is one of the things I found on my Camino was that human connection, right? And how I didn't realize in my life in the US how much I went through the day without really speaking to people. You know, I could go to a Starbucks and be in line with people and really not have any conversation or any connection. Yet on Camino, I was finding myself having deep conversations with total strangers, and it felt so normal. And when I came back home, I still wanted that to continue. And that's one of the things I missed so much about the Camino, because, you know, if I walk up to somebody at Starbucks, well, things are different now, but prior to COVID, if I walked up to someone and started having that kind of conversation, I think that they might kind of step away and think, you know, what's wrong with this girl? Right? But I love that about the Camino, and that's one of the reasons I want to go back. And it's one of the reasons that I too also want to live there. So thank you for those answers. I think those were brilliant illustrations to someone who's wondering, what is this magic of the Camino? And I think you're really showing that in the things that you're bringing up. So I want to switch gears a little bit and just talk about, what was the timeline from when you first walked to actually opening the doors at Casa Susi? How long of a period of time was that?
So my first Camino was May, June 2012. Okay. And by May 2013, I was on my third Camino.
Wow, okay.
By March 2014, I had sold my flower shop in Australia, and I packed everything into storage. And I gave myself 2 years to find a home. And that was my most important thing I found. I wanted to find a home on the Camino that could be hopefully an albergue. So I gave myself 2 years. And in that time, I walked a lot of Caminos. So I also walked through France from La Puy, and I walked from Lisbon in Portugal, the Norte. So I was, not only did I do different Caminos within Spain, I also went to different countries. Maybe that was where I wanted to be. I wanted to be very sure about, you know, the country and the place that I wanted to be in. And it always did come back to Spain. And then I became a hospitalero at the same time, just to make sure that I still had that connection, because as you've said, it's the connection with the people. That's what kept me going. That's what kept me walking to Santiago. And what happens if I didn't get that connection with the people because they were walking and I was a route system and I wasn't leaving?
Right.
Would I want to walk with them? And then that would be a pointless thing, opening an albergue. But I still got the connection, even meeting them for one evening in an albergue as a hospitalero. So I knew I was, you know, still on the right track. And on month 20 of the 2 years, I'd just about given up. I hadn't found, I wasn't going to buy something for the sake of it. Because I needed to love what I was going to live in. I was going to live there alone. So I needed to love the home and the space and the place that I was going to be in. And I looked at lots of things and I hadn't found anything. So I was on my last walk back to Santiago to fly back to Australia. And I was in Villafranca del Hierro. And I walked and I saw this house and I went, yep, I think that could be the one. And yes, and it was the one. So I then had purchased it by the end of 2015.
Okay.
Yep. And the whole of 2016, so we're now 4 years from my first Camino. I started the renovations on the property. It was an old barn. So the upstairs was a partly livable house. It was very, very basic, but I could live here. And downstairs was just a big dirt floor. It was the old stable, and that's what got converted to the albergue.
Okay.
And in April 2017, I opened Casa Susi for the first time. So yeah, just under 5 years. I went from comfortable life in Australia to living in the middle of nowhere in Spain, not speaking any other language but English.
So, Susi, I think when I was walking the Camino, myself included, but pretty much every pilgrim I walked with, I think, as we're walking by places and you see the little for sale signs, we all have that dream of, wow, this, because we love the Camino. This would be great to buy this place. What do you think it is about you that gave you the courage, the resilience? I don't know, like what qualities of you do you think helped you kind of stick through this and go through all that research? And I can imagine a lot of red tape, a lot of ups and downs. What is it about you that helped you realize this dream?
I'm not a big planner.
Okay.
So when I take a decision, when I say I'm doing something, I'm the doer.
Okay.
I don't think about them. If I sat and thought about it long enough, I'd probably put myself, I'd start thinking, oh yeah, that wouldn't be a good idea for whatever reason.
Okay.
My best plan was come to Spain, be a hospitalero, see if it works for me and buy a property. That's probably not the way to go about it. Look, I was blessed. It did work for me. But
right.
I'm one of those, I'm going to do it. I don't sit there and just, keep talking about it. Once I say it, then I'm off and the ball starts rolling. But there could have been, maybe I wouldn't have sold the flower shop. Maybe this flower shop wouldn't have sold so quickly. And maybe while I was waiting for it to sell and it took too long, I would have just maybe changed my mind. But everything fell into sync to make it become quick for me. And I suppose, yes, it was that the quality is jump and then decide afterwards, how do I float?
I love it. To jump and then figure out how to float. Oh, that's a great quote. Wonderful. So what did
the Titanic?
So what did it feel like that first day when you opened the door and you said, I'm going to welcome my first pilgrim? What was it like when that first pilgrim showed up?
Not good.
I love it.
I'd spent so long doing the renovation that by the time it came to opening, I'd forgotten what I was doing. I forgot about being a hospitalero. Because I did the renovations with the help of one little Cuban helper. So it was me that dug the drains. It was me that poured the concrete. It was me that built the stone walls. It was me that did the tiling. So I'd done that for such a long time that, the thought of suddenly being a hospitalero, and suddenly then I went, oh, but I don't speak the language. What's going to happen? How am I going to communicate? But I had an awesome Portuguese/Spanish friend, also a pilgrim, who come and helped me throughout the renovation program with all the paperwork and all the difficulties. She was my translator and my support. And so when it came to open, I had been in Australia for a few months, preparing because it was winter.
Yeah.
And to come back to open, and I came back and she came to be here with me. And I said, I just can't do this. And she said, okay, well, go and find another property and do renovations and I'll open it. And I said, oh, I don't have any more money. She said, that's where you're going to open it. And she said, we're going to do it today. We got to open the door. And but I hadn't done any advertising. I mean, I had no signs up. I had a Susi sign that went down like this. It looked like sushi. To say I was an albergue. It was nothing to say I was an albergue. We ended up putting a slate tile outside, albergue open. And I'm lucky I have really two very big doors. So, we were able to open the door and that is the entry, which is beautifully and welcoming. But there was really nothing to let anybody know what was happening. And by late afternoon, there was no pilgrims. So I started washing my car, which was out in the street because I had nothing better to do. And suddenly I heard Aussie, and it was two Australian women. By accident, I'd met in Sydney. They were TV weather reporters, newspaper journalists. There was a group of 6 of them, and I had met them at a meeting in Sydney, but so briefly, I can't even begin to tell you, so briefly they didn't even get where I was. And 2 of them were walking up the street, and they happened to be, the group had booked a house in Strabadello, which was so silly, except 2 of them had decided they were going to stay in an albergue. I mean, it's not a stage Trabadello, so it's all very, very weird that they were coming here. And it was these 2 women, and they said, Susie, I said, oh my God, you're here. And they go, yeah, the group is staying here, and well, we're looking for an albergue. Well, I'm open. And so, yeah, my first day ended up being 2 Aussies, which was amazing. And so then when the others came through, so it was another 4 women, and they had collected a jazz pianist, I think he was from Brazil, and 2 German people. Anyway, there was another 7. And so they said, well, can we all eat with you tonight? Would that be okay? Because we've already rented this house. And I said, yeah, no problem. I'm sort of going to do typical food that you'd have at home. And
Right.
so then they all came back. So that night, though I only had 2 people stay, I had 9 of them for dinner. And it was magical. It really was. To think it was Australians, like for me,
Yes.
that was really special. The next day was a bit easier. I can open the door, and so yeah. So that the first day was after washing the car, it was all good.
Oh my goodness, Susie, that I have chills from this story.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing of how, your mindset had to really shift because you had to remodel the house and do all of that work. And all of a sudden you've kind of lost this whole, what you're going to be like this hospitalero, and you all of a sudden like, wait a minute, what am I doing here? And then you're out washing the car, and what Camino magic that here comes these 2 women from Australia. And then you end up hosting 9 Australians the first night. What a celebration that must have been.
That's what made it so amazing.
Yes.
It was pretty magical. Yeah, the Camino provides.
Exactly. I feel like the universe, just hearing your whole story now, I feel like the universe has supported you on every step of the way, showing you that, yes, you are in fact doing the right thing. And oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
It keeps the faith for, when I talk about it. So thank you for allowing me to talk about it, Lee, for me to share it, because we feel like it's such a long time since we've been open and we've had pilgrims. But to talk about those things, you go, yeah, I'm here for a reason. Yes. And I want to be here for a reason. I want to continue being here.
Yes.
For that reason.
Wow, so many directions I want to go next. I think let's go with this one next. I wondered if you could think back and if you imagine someone like me who would love to move and do what you've done, what would be the top thing that you would say, do first?
I think some of those points that I've, just make sure that it's the right country, just make sure it's really what you want to do. So, try and be a hospitalero because that does help to make sure you have those feelings. And it's tough work, it's really long hours, and it doesn't stop. And people not everybody maybe would be like us, but I sense that you're like me. You're a real giver, and you're a nurturer, and you're caring, and for that reason, we go above and beyond because I give what I would have wanted to receive. And so if you all of those things, so that's probably one of the big things that you need to know, that you're going to work terribly long hours, but the reward will never be monetary, but it will be internal. It will fill your soul. And the one thing is, once you find where you want to be, or you find the house, go and speak to the local council. And I didn't do this straight away. But if you speak to the local council and you're open and honest with them, they'll make sure doors can open for you. They'll be able to help you. Whereas, this house had a project that was with an architect already. As it turned out, he wasn't a good architect. He ripped me off for a lot of money. And in fact, if I'd just gone and spoken to the council, I actually didn't need him. I could have just had a basic form. I didn't need an architect. I could have had a different form of things. So I think that's, speak to the council because they're the ones that will say yes and no to many things. Yeah, there's lots of other people you've got to speak to in after that. But your council is the one that's going to allow you to do what you want to do with your house to begin with. And then there's many other places, you've got to speak to tourism and all of those things, industrial departments and blah, blah.
Oh, excellent tip.
Yeah.
What's the one thing that you learned from experience that you would say, don't do this? Here's the one thing, don't do this.
Listen to the architects. look, I had a few disasters. The architect then got the electrical engineer involved. I didn't need him either. And this ended up being thousands of dollars that I didn't need to spend, that was never used, because I then had to get another architect. So though I'd paid the first one, I ended up having to get a second one because the first one was so bad. Is there nothing not to do? No, because I look at it now that they were just the lessons. They were just the lessons to get me where I am today. Maybe to help other people. As we said before, if I can help somebody, and I do get lots of emails and people asking me questions about buying places, or do I know things? And yeah, I mean, I want to help people. Right. And I don't want anybody to have a disaster, but we do have disasters, whether we like it or not. Yeah. These things happen. And what I can say today, because what happened to me might not happen tomorrow, or this person you speak to when you go to tourism may have a different answer for you today and may have a different answer for you tomorrow. So is there anything not to do? No, not really.
Okay. So thank you for that. I think that's spoken like a true pilgrim. For our listeners and our viewers who have not had the pleasure of visiting your Facebook or your Instagram feeds, one of the things that really has stood out to me is your sense of style. And what I'm talking about here is the way, I haven't yet had the pleasure of visiting Casa Susi, but through the pictures, I see just a beautiful style of how you've decorated. But there's this one photo of breakfast plates that have been set up. Yeah. You know the photo I'm talking about? Yeah. And the minute I saw this level of attention to detail. And I put it in the back of my mind and I thought, if I ever open a place, I've got to remember this visual, because this is how I'd want my place to be. I'd want it to be organized. So I'm just wondering if you could share with us, how did all of your Caminos form what you want to offer at your place? And what are those important things that, because I feel like this style or this organization, there's something there that I'm seeing. And, what is that? And what are the other things that you are like, this has to be a part of what I offer to pilgrims? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
I think I walked over 10 Caminos, and basically I walked over 10 Caminos. And maybe even by the end of the first one, as I was walking and going into places, I started putting it in the back of my mind. If I had an albergue, and I know we all say this when we walk, if I had an albergue, what would I do? And so I started to get my own list. I mean, it was in my head, but what would I want when I got there? And so all of these things, and that's what, part of the reason I walked through France, because France, they do things incredible in France. You also pay a lot of money to stay in these incredible places in France, but it was those finer details. And they are important. I was a florist before, so maybe that was attention to detail, color, style. Doesn't have to cost a lot of money. I mean, it's easy just to go and pick some daisies in the garden and put them in the vase. But that little touch,
yes,
makes a big difference. Not to everybody, but it does to a lot of people. It does to a lot of people, not particularly the Spanish, but people from where we come from. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Notice that, because we see that in our everyday life. The pretty little shops that we can go in and buy the little knickknacks that are around. So, our plates are only from IKEA, but it's the color that goes with it.
Yes, that's exactly.
When I decided to do the albergue, all I knew is I wanted 12 beds. I knew I wanted 12 beds. I don't know what the reason was. Lots of people have told me why the reason is, but it was my reason. I know I could cope with 12 people. When I was a hospitalero, I did it for 14 and I did it for 10, but 12 to me was a good number. Mm-hmm. And it fits well around a table. And so all of those things, built up. And the only other thing I knew I wanted is I wanted to use one color. What was that color going to be? I wasn't sure, but I just wanted one, color just to stand out. The house is wood and stone. It's very grey and it's very dark. It's chestnut wood, which is all very dark. It's 300 years old, so it's very dark wood, and it's grey stone. Put down a wooden floor, need one colour. And my daughter gave me a Tiffany keyring, and I go, oh, well, there's the colour. It's Tiffany colour. That's my colour. So, that was my wall then. So everything was grey and wood and the Tiffany colour.
Yeah.
And then that just, those little touches came from that. Suddenly, the plates could be navy and they could be this sort of, they're this more tealy, and then the blue because you couldn't quite get the Tiffany, but that worked. And then the glasses, and then the water glasses are all shades of Tiffany's and blues, and all of that comes together. But I am going to be perfectly honest with you. Fermin lays the table at nighttime, and he does the breakfast.
Nice.
And he is precision. He's very he's an architect by design, and everything has to be. I cook and do everything else, and he lays the table for dinner. That's what he does. And even the pilgrims always want to help him lay the table. There's always people that want to help, and he has to do one placement for them to know, because then it's alternate colours and it's alternate plates of the thing. And he does breakfast after we've finished dinner. I clear up, put everything away, and I prepare the breakfast, but he makes the breakfast happen. All of that is from him. So,
well, I'm telling you, Susie, when I saw that photo, I already knew the place was beautiful, right, from other Instagram pictures or whatever. But when I saw that one, what stood out to me is I felt like here are hosts that have extreme attention to detail. There aren't just various plates thrown together, various cups. Like that kind of detail shows me that there's going to be, like, there was so much beauty, so much attention to detail in that I knew in my heart that was going to be a beautiful place to stay, that the people behind that are going to be full of love. And you can just feel it from all of your photos and the things that you talk about in your posts. So anyway, I want to encourage all viewers and listeners to go in and look at your Facebook page, to look at your Instagram, which I'll include the links. But
the other thing is with the breakfast, if we wouldn't eat it, I couldn't give it. That what we give is because that's what we would want for breakfast. We have dinner with the pilgrims. We eat with them, which is such a rare thing, but we're sharing our food that we would want to eat. Do you know what I mean? And I think that makes a massive difference as well in terms of what you eat and how you feel, because we're sharing our home. We want people to feel like they're in a home. And it's lovely because in my guest book, which is my pride and joy, we often have, it feels like coming home, or it feels like visiting my favorite aunt. I feel like I've been with my family, and that to me, every time I read it, and I do pick it up regularly, the books that I have, and I go, we did good.
Yes,
we did it right.
I think that's exactly what that's exactly what I'm seeing there, is that it's like you're not just booking a night at an albergue, you're booking a night, you're getting to spend a night with your family.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. So I want to move to, first I wanted to say, and you and I've talked a little bit about this offline, but I walked my first Camino when I was 53, after a heartbreak and all of that, and I think a lot of women go through this, and it's why we go on Camino. Sometimes we've had a major life transition, maybe become empty nesters, or a change of career, or retirement, whatever. And I just wondered, if somebody's out there who's near our ages, if you could just maybe kind of give a little inspiration, how old were you when the first Camino? And, what would you say to women like us who maybe are starting that next chapter in life? How could you encourage them to maybe go on Camino?
I was 45 when I did my first Camino, and like I said, never backpacked, never stayed in hospital, didn't think it was possible, didn't want to share bathrooms. I mean, I did realize I didn't have to. I could go into private rooms.
Right.
The whole point for me was to experience what it was. And so my first day in St. Jean Pied de Port, I was in a communal room, but I decided the first night of walking when I got to Roncesvalles, thinking I don't know even if I'm going to make it, but I'm booked. I'd already booked the hotel because I thought if I am crying and sobbing and I want to leave, I just want to be on my own right there and then. And I did it, and you know what? It was the worst thing I'd ever done because I did want to be with everybody else in the old book, but I didn't know that. But it was a good lesson to learn. And I'd also sent my bag the first day because I didn't think I could carry that. And I never did that again because I didn't like actually being without it. I liked having it with me. Yes. So there were two very good lessons to learn. That wasn't your question, but they were two very good lessons for me to learn. But for somebody that's thinking about doing it, just go, put one step in front of the other. And if you don't like it, like my daughter said, it's going to take you 3 days and you can leave. Yes. Or you're going to say, this is going to change my life and I'll go. And what will keep you going will be the people that you meet. The biggest step is booking your ticket and getting on the plane and getting to St. Jean and beginning. And if you go, I can't climb that first mountain, no one says you have to start in the St. Jean. You can start in Pamplona where it's flat. You don't have to climb the mountain. There's no reason not to, I'm too old. I've got bad feet. No. I've met people that walk 5Ks a day. I've met people that walk 5Ks a day and then get on a bus to go another 10. That's your Camino. It's okay to do that. There's no rules to say. There should be no judgment about how you do your Camino. But however you do it, if you do it, you've done it. And that to me is the biggest thing. If any woman that needs encouragement that has fear, and I know people that have had, and I always say to them, you've got me on Facebook, here's my number in Spain, this is my WhatsApp, call me. It's okay, contact me. We can help you and encourage you.
Oh, I know just people hearing and seeing you today are going to be so encouraged. I mean, what a story. You've done all these Caminos. You have built the dream. You achieved the dream of opening an albergue. And I think that should inspire so many women. So I hope if you're out there listening or watching and you've had the pull to go on the Camino, both Susie and I encourage you to go. Yeah. I'm a big romantic at heart. And, so, you know, one of the things I also love about your story, Susie, is the story of Pilgrim number 30. So we can't end our interview without talking about Pilgrim number 30. So I just wonder if you would share with everyone, what was it like that day when Pilgrim number 30 checked in and what happened?
So I'd only been open. I wasn't looking for love. Any women that were out there, I certainly wasn't looking for love in any form. So, you know, it wasn't something I was expecting, but any of you that want to come and put one foot in front of the other, you may find love. If that's what you're looking for, just be open to it. So yes, I wasn't prepared looking for anything. And it was, 2 weeks after I'd opened. It was May the 1st, mid-afternoon. There was a couple of ladies that checked in, and it just was peaceful on the Camino. In fact, the previous day we'd had a lot of snow on the mountains around us. It had been extremely cold, and we had clothes because it was that cold. And this was, you know, a beautifully sunny day, and you know, it was back to 20 degrees, which was silly from the snow the day before. And my best friend was visiting from Australia, and we have a little bench outside painted Tiffany colour, and so we were sitting there with our little slate tile that said albergue. And somebody was walking up the road, and I was facing the opposite direction, and my girlfriend said to me, there's a guy walking up the road, he looks really nice. And she said, have a look. And I said, I can't just look. And we were laughing because we've been, you know, best mates for 25 years at that time. So and she goes, quick, look now, he's not looking. And I turned around as this person looked at me. And yes, he was incredibly attractive, and he was tall and handsome, and he had this amazing smile. And it was within distance at this point, and hola, and hello. He said, oh, how are you going? What you doing? And well, that was me in my Aussie, but not him in his accent. But he was speaking English to me. And I said, oh, I've got an albergue. And he said, oh, really? Can I have a look? I said, yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't pick where he came from. He didn't look Spanish to me. He looked more French. He was tall, and he had a different look, and he had a different English speaking accent. Okay. And so he came in the door and he said, this is amazing. Who did this? I said, oh, I did this. And he goes, you designed it? And I said, yeah, I designed it. And he said, but you know, you got people to make this for you. And I said, no, I did it. And he's like, oh, wow, amazing. I said, oh, do you want to see into the rooms? I didn't know he was an architect. And so then I showed him the bathrooms, which the bathrooms, there were two separate bathrooms, but they're a big open space. There's a big rainhead shower, and a big one's got an amazing antique sink in it, black, and the toilets. A big space, both of them are lovely, and then 12 single beds, no bunks. And he saw the bathrooms and he goes, yeah, I'm staying. I'm staying tonight. And so at dinner, he then said, oh, you know, the place is amazing. I'm an architect. So, you know, I sort of warmed to him. By then we had 4 women, and for me, the only man, and my best friend, and I cooked. And I cooked a Greek dish, which is made at Easter time, which takes quite a while to make.
Yeah.
So we sat down to dinner, and he took one mouthful and he said, wow, this is amazing. Are you single? And and there, everybody's at the table. I said, a lot, yes. And he goes, will you marry me? And everybody, yeah, that like that. Everyone's like, what? and it was funny. It was funny. Yes. But Fermin pretty much didn't leave.
He really wasn't joking. It was really
yeah, he really wasn't joking. And I was, you know, very wary, and he did try to invite me for a drink that night, which I didn't understand, and I gave him the key to the door and said, here's the key. So I was given the key really quickly. So, I was encouraging him. I just said, be quiet, because everybody will be asleep. But I thought, he's Spanish, he's a man, you know, he should go to the bar. That's what they do. And all the women were going to bed. And then I went upstairs to my girlfriend and said, what are you doing? The guy asked you for a drink. And I'm like, no. She said, yes, he did. And so in the morning, I got up to make everybody breakfast. That's what I used to do before I had a partner to stop me getting up early in the morning. Yes. And I had breakfast, and Fermin was very kind. He said, you know, you're not on any apps. You're not even on Google Business. You're not even on a Google map. And I can help you. Let me help you. But all the women wanted to help as well. So, you know, the morning went by a little bit longer. And then he said to me, I need your phone number. And I'm like, why do you need my phone number? He said, well, because Google Business will send you a letter to put a code in to make sure you're real. And I'm thinking, this is just rubbish. And he said, so if you give me your number, if you're stuck, then we can correspond if you need help. And so I begrudgingly gave him my number. And then he said to the women, look, you'll start, and, you know, I'll catch you up. I'm just going to take my time, but, you know, obviously I'll walk quick and I will catch you up. And we said goodbye. They left. And then he said to me, you're not very good with the selfie photos either. So let's practice the selfie again, because he was really good with it, with me and him.
Yes.
Then we got the selfie, and then when we got to the door, this was my most embarrassing moment. We went to say goodbye, and I don't know what came over me. I jumped into his arms. I wrapped my legs and arms around him like a koala, and then thought, what am I doing? And jumped down. So that's my most embarrassing thing I have to tell you. And then he said to me, come and walk with me. And it was the first time, I hadn't thought about walking the Camino in a really long time. It was the first time I thought, maybe. And of course I said no, because that would be irresponsible. I've just got an old burgie, I've just opened. So no, but we'll stay in contact. So he left. Yes. And he ended up coming back very late that night, I went and picked him up from the albergue because he told me he was sleeping on a couch, which he wasn't, that I felt guilty at midnight.
Okay.
And he spent that day, and we realized that actually we had a really unique connection. As you know, the relationships with friends on the Camino become very deep very quickly because you cut out all the rubbish. You go to what's within you, what's in your heart, what maybe has hurt you, what's caused you pain, what's caused you a lot of joy. We exchange our relationship details very quickly about our previous relationships and maybe what we wanted, all within that day. And that night he stayed at dinner, and we were nearly full that night. I think we had 10 people, and he didn't know anybody at the table. Funny enough, considering being walking the Camino, most of his friends had sort of gone through that day,
right?
Had kept going, and he'd seen some of those people. So all these people he didn't know, and when we sat down to dinner, we introduced ourselves, my name, blah blah blah. And these two, so how long have you been doing this? And I'm like, 2 weeks. And they said, and are you married? How long have you been? How long have you been together before this? And it's just like, no, you're only right. He's a pilgrim. He's just like you. And all these people just looked and said, but it seems so normal. It seems there's an instant something. And in fact, we got 2 late arrivals. They filled the last 2 beds, and it was a Brazilian singer with a guitar and a girl from Slovenia who came from Australia, actually, though she's Slovenian. And we ended up having this incredible concert, which I have the most amazing videos. Some of them are on the Facebook page. And Fermin can sing, and him and this guy was singing, and I think I fell in love with him that night, to be perfectly honest. And he left the next day, and he said, maybe when this is all over, maybe I can come and spend a week with you, and we can see if we've still got it outside of, the Camino, if we can just be girl and boy and see what happens. And 2 days later, he said, come and walk the Camino, come and walk to Santiago with me. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do it. So the irresponsible me, the one that doesn't think, shut the doors, and off she went and walked to Santiago. Yeah,
oh my gosh.
3 days, and I came back, opened the doors again, and he said, I'll go back to Pamplona and I'll prepare, my family. His first and only nephew had just been born, and he needed to prepare his business to leave it for a further week. And that was on the Tuesday. And on the Sunday, he walked back up the street, and he never left.
Wow.
So from that moment, we've spent 24/7 together every single day, living the life through the albergue with 12 people every day to discover each other. So it's strange, because after that first 7 months of doing this together, and it was good because I was still playing a little girl in her mum's shoes with Casa Susi before he came. So when he came, it grew together.
Yeah.
It hadn't formed itself. It was still trying to find its way on the Camino, to find its place. And suddenly we made it become, and it's not one without the other, because what one can't do, the other does, and the other supports and picks up the other person. And so in the December, I took him back to Australia to then meet all my family and friends. And I did then wonder, thinking, okay, we've had this for 7 months. Do we have anything outside of the Camino? Because as you know, when the Camino comes into your life, you want to talk about it all the time and live it and breathe it. Right. And so we were doing that every day. But I thought, I wonder if we actually, I began to think, do we have anything outside of the Camino? And and we did. Yeah.
Beautiful. I think I've heard Herman say on another podcast that, like every night since then has kind of been like this, pre-COVID has been like this family party every evening when you guys are having dinner with the other pilgrims. And I just thought that was such a beautiful description of what's going on. And
Saturday night. It's always Saturday night.
Yes, Saturday night. That was it. Every night's like a Saturday
Yeah,
night.
always Saturday. You don't know what to expect at dinner. Maybe everybody could be in bed at 9, or maybe at 1 o'clock in the morning, we're still singing, playing. One of the first things that came in said we had to buy, when we had some money, was a guitar. We had a broken guitar that somebody had given us, and we got a guitar, and we've had some incredible nights with pilgrims singing. And sometimes there's been, no one can play the guitar, but there's people singing, and dancing, and yeah, long nights of talking and sharing stories and sharing dreams, helping people, encouraging them. Sometimes people get here and they're just ready to give up, and they're so close, and no, we don't want to push anyone. We try and help them get the rest of the way.
Yes. Beautiful. Oh boy, the story of you two meeting, again, illustrates so many things about the Camino. And I think the part that you're saying is that the Camino is really all about connection. And I think you guys making that connection, and it was kind of like there was still one connection, one puzzle piece missing in this dream. And here he comes on day 20, or not day 20, but
yeah, it was more or less. Yeah.
And I love that, again, when he said, come and walk the rest of the way with me to Santiago, I feel like that really illustrates how you will jump and you will take that risk.
There we go.
And that the risk pays off. And, I want to say to especially all the women, all the men listening, anybody listening,
yeah,
you are an illustration of, sometimes you have to take that risk. You have to take that jump. You don't know what's going to happen. And here you are, you've made this dream happen. You've opened your door. You didn't expect him to walk into your life, right? But I feel like you still took another risk, and you said, you know what? And it wasn't like a careless risk. You really thought this through. You didn't leave with him on day one.
No.
But you thought it through, and then you took this risk. And I love how this story it just keeps continuing to expand. It's so beautiful. So beautiful. And to all of our viewers and listeners, know that I'm going to speak to him next week. And we're going to hear his whole side of why he walked and why Furman decided to stay, which I think no one will be surprised after seeing and hearing you. I think anyone would want to stay there and be a part of any part of your dream. I know I can't wait to walk again and be there and stay at your place. So I'm hoping I get to do that soon. But a couple of things I wanted to make sure before we finish up. I think I could talk to you the rest of the night. But I know you have things to do. It's late where you are. And I just wanted to say a couple of things. I know that first up, I wanted to give you a chance to have a shout out to anyone that you wanted to say hi to. And I wanted to start, since I'm a mama, I wanted to first I think your daughter really inspired you early on. And I think it's really fun to see our girls grow up and become, we've inspired them, but I think when they take that step where they start inspiring us is such a beautiful thing. So I just wonder if you want to just say her name, give a shout out, and anything you might want to say to her before we come to a close.
I think Lee just wants me to cry to all the listeners. I want to say, Lee, thank you. I felt like I'm sitting talking to one of my dear girlfriends. It's been really easy and beautiful to sit chatting with you about, wonderful things about the Camino and life itself. So that I want to thank you. And my beautiful daughter is called Maggie. And she's my light and my soul. She's named after my grandmother, who was my first love, and the best thing I could do was to give my daughter my grandmother's name, and she lives up to the name with much delight. She's in Australia.
Okay.
And I miss her. I've never spent so much time apart from her, but due to COVID,
Yes.
I can't go back without very strict, expensive quarantine to go back there. So I've never not seen her for more than 9 months, and now we're in month 13. Not that we're counting, but to touch her face again will be a joy.
Right, to give that big hug. Well, I want to say to Maggie, you've got one strong mama, first off. And thank you, Maggie, for encouraging your mama to stick with this, you know, and to encourage her when she was sitting there in Pamplona, that she could always turn around and leave if she had to, that she only had to go 3 days. And then I think putting that little bug of we're all betting gave her that encouragement to do it. So thank you to Maggie for the whole Camino community, because I think that was a beautiful inspiration. And I also wanted to say, you know, I know that you've had some challenges this past year, of course, and that there's been a GoFundMe for the roof. And I just wonder if you could, I will have the link, but I know that you guys are still trying to raise money. So I encourage anyone who is watching or listening, you know, to think about if they have something in their heart that they could donate to help with the roof, so that we can keep Casa Susi open, so that we all can now go and stay there. Because I know everybody's going to want to stay there after seeing this or listening to you on one of your other amazing podcasts. The one you did with Dan Mullins was beautiful, as well as some others. So I encourage everybody to go out and listen to the others, because we all tend to talk about different things. And I think that kind of forms a whole picture of things. But I wonder, is there anything you want to say about the roof? Or also, I think for all of us who are wanting to get back to Spain, there's a lot of question I know in the US is like, how can we support? How can, you know, of course there's financial ways, but are there things that we could do to inspire to, you know, I can't imagine what it's like right now to not be having pilgrims walk in your door. And is there anything that we could do to help support you, or anything at all that comes to your mind? Do you ever like, oh, I just wish somebody would do something, say something? Are there ways that we could help financially or in other ways?
I mean, I always think, you know, listening to the podcast and listening to us talking about the Camino is keeping it alive for when everybody can come back. I know, you know, everybody's out there all over the world haven't forgotten the Camino, and you're all desperate to come back, and we're here living it every day. And I'd like to say, you know, it's the dream, that it's really tough for us. You know, we don't get financial support, so you know that has been tough. We've got a great veggie garden which we're, you know, replanting for summer, but of course winter was hard. I just think continuing, you know, seeing our Facebook, or for all of us, you know, following us on Facebook or on Instagram. I try and keep mine active most days, liking it, knowing that, you know, I just get messages, just I'm thinking about you. That's really nice. And we get cards in the post. I've got some lovely pilgrims that have stayed here that just, you know, pop cards in the post. We've had, you know, odd care packages from Australia. And I know they're all difficult, you know, to send, and things are taking time, but when they come, they're amazing to get. And the roof, yeah, really was the cherry on the top of the end of last year for us. You know, the roof was patched when I first came because I couldn't afford to fix it completely. So they're old slate roofs. So the roof has been on for 300 years. It has been changed once, but you know, they're not like roofs that we get in our countries where there's boarding and insulation. When I go in my attic, I just see the tiles, and so they're slate tiles, and they crack and they break, and you know, heavy snow makes them cave in a little. The wind blows and that pushes them out of sink, and so then the water comes through. There is no floor in the attic, it's just the rafters, and so our ceilings are false in the next level, which is where we live, and so now parts of our ceilings have started to come from the leaks as well. That's actually gone on over the winter time. So before even we knew the roof had to be done, we didn't realize suddenly the ceilings would be a problem. So yeah, it's been a bit of a disaster, and I feel like I'm going on and on about it, and so I don't mean to. It's just, it's been hard.
Yeah.
Now the GoFundMe that some lovely pilgrims, Peter and Tess in Australia, started, because we couldn't have asked for the money. We couldn't have asked for it for myself. They started for us. We could never have reached the amount we've reached. So we're off target still. We've still got a little bit to go, not too much, but there's, yeah, it's a bit further to go. But whatever happens, it has to be now replaced. And the council did at some point, because we belong to the Heritage Department, because we're on the Camino de Santiago, the council said, oh, well, you can't replace your road, we're replacing your neighbours. And suddenly it was going to be 60,000 euros and not 30,000 euros. And it's just like, wow, this is impossible. We have to sell and leave. And that did break my heart. And then Fermin said, well, we have to be realistic. And I said, well, realistic, where do we go? We can't go anywhere during COVID. And right, what do we do? This is our life. This is what we love doing. We love giving. We love receiving pilgrims here. And right, we want to continue this. So anyway, the GoFundMe has started and we are getting closer. But yes, if anybody wants to help, it would be much appreciated.
All right, well, I will definitely include the link on our show notes so that people can get to that. And I wonder if you would share the story. I was so touched by the gentleman who grew out his hair.
Les.
Yes, and then, so tell everyone, if they haven't seen the post, tell everyone about him and what he did for you.
Yeah, so we met him last year when we went to Australia. So we love helping the Camino community. So anybody that wants to give a talk or do something on Zoom, Zoom isn't a new thing. That wasn't before. I didn't know about Zoom before COVID. It's suddenly amazing. Yes. So all of these things have come up. And so we did a talk in the Blue Mountains in Australia for a Camino group. And, it was a great day. And there was this lovely gentleman there. And he had made, one of the way markers in cement, with a tile. He had made this. And he brought it along to the meeting because he goes on a regular basis in case anybody wanted one. And so clean shaven, lovely man with his way marker. And he was very funny and he was very engaging. He was a great guy. Anyway, COVID hit. So we did this just before COVID. It was the end of February last year. And all our problems for us in terms of being in Australia and coming back to Spain happened in March. So we got back as everything closed down and that was it. Well, Les had planned to come and do the Camino last year. Well, of course, he couldn't come. And so he said, unbeknown to me, I didn't know any of this had happened at the time. He said, I'm not going to cut my hair or cut my beard until I go to Spain, thinking, it would be this year, maybe. At the end of last year, maybe. Well, of course, it's gone on and on, hasn't it? It's been 5 years. Anyway, God love Les. He then said, okay, my wife can't stand this anymore. I'm not sure I can stand this anymore. So he just emailed me and he said, I want to donate my hair and my beard to raise funds for you at Casa Susi. And it's like, really? And he said, yeah, they can either cut it themselves or that might not be possible because people will come from all over, but we'll get someone to cut it and I will dye it. And so he picked some things. I think he did a multicolored Spain flag on his beard was one, and there was a Trump look as another. And anyway, so he had design, and the yellow arrow was definitely the best one. So people donated. He tried to raise 2,500 Australian dollars, and he got 2,200, I think. So he did it over the course of 3 weeks. And then when they had the next meeting in the Blue Mountains, they did it on a live Zoom with this. And then people were donating to keep pics of his beard. So they were putting beards and hair in envelopes, and it was another €5. And so they got more with him. And so the hairstylist came and she put it in the yellow. She did the arrow. So 2 days before, he had to bleach his whole hair white for the dye to take, for this actual yellow dye to take. So they ended up with this yellow arrow. So yeah, amazing.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love the creativity, the love that he put back into that. And so, yeah, so please, if you haven't had a chance to see these posts, please take a look. And what's his name again?
His name's Les Simmons.
Lesson. Okay. It's just a great illustration of somebody doing something really creative and fun to help you. So I think it's just really cool. And wow, like I said, I could talk to you all day, but I know that's not fair. But I just wanted to say that I feel like I recently interviewed Tanya Valdez, and she told me a story about her grandfather. And anyway, I coined her the lantern of the Camino, that she's just this bright lantern for people walking the Portuguese route. And I want to say for you, Susie, I see you as the sunshine of the Frances. And I feel like people that would have the chance to come and stay with you will just feel your energy and this warmth and sunshine. So I am so excited that I got to speak with you today, and I can't wait to come and stay with you. I hope it's sooner than later.
We can't wait for you to come either. We can't wait for you to come and visit either. And people don't have to stay to come and say hello. If they're passing or they're staying in private rooms somewhere, they can always knock at the door. We have lots of people knock and say hello. It's always a pleasure. And if people need help, we are here because we do speak. I speak English, the men speak Spanish. So we're all good with the languages if people need help.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for saying that. So wonderful. Thank you so much. And we wish you all the best. And we all can't wait to walk by, stay with you, whatever that brings. And thank you so much for taking this time with us.
You're welcome, Lee.
All right. Well, I will stop the recording here.